It's 4 o'clock on Friday. You know what that means, don't you? It's time for another exciting episode of Taxi's Quarantini Happy Hour. Woohoo! TGIF. And thank you, fake audience. Thank you, fake band. You guys are excellent. And that fade was spectacular. Let's see who's in that chat room. All right. Who we have here? Kira Canyon, Dan Weber, Ian Shortall, Dan Weber, Darren Moss, Rick Cabot Podmore, Nancy Collell, Cass McKenty, Alex Dillon, Darren Fletcher, Riffs That Rule, a new name I think in there. Hello Riffs. Bob Gunnerfelt, Andre Stepanian, Edmund Red, Pete Mason, Paul House. Hello, Paul. Let's see who else shows up here. Wind Chimes, Jesse J. Peck, Liz from Member Services. Hello, Liz. She's like the den mother of Taxi, I think. John Michael Carnat, sorry. Peter Rahill, Martin Gravel, Bob Gunnerfelt, I think I said hello to you already. Jim Stamper, Pete Mason. Hello, everybody. How are you guys? I don't know about you, but I am damn glad it's Friday. Riffs That Rules, only been a member since last November. New kid on the block, Mark Reel. Hello. Oh, man. I'm exhausticated. I really am. Hello, Lou Lewis. Been a busy, crazy busy week this week. Just all kinds of stuff. Spent the better part of the morning rounding up some, we're getting ready to hire some new screeners. We've had so many submissions over the last couple months. And some of the screeners, I think, how can I say this? They're enjoying the fact that they can collect unemployment, even though they're currently working for Taxi. Many of them have other gigs that allow them where they're not working because, like live gigs and such, because of various lockdowns and COVID-related stuff. They're collecting unemployment, and so it's a little hard to get them off their butts to do some screening. So we have been adding some new screeners, and think we got some really good ones going. We shall see as things pan out next week, but looking good, especially in the pop and urban markets. Trev Fury, you didn't miss anything. Just my salutation, my hello. Andre Stepanian's already got 6 gigs already for August. Things are looking up. That's cool. Anyway, so yeah, that's how I spent my morning. Actually was on the phone. One of the new screeners is a gentleman that I'm good friends with. We've been buddies now for, 5 or 6 years. He's a hit songwriter, hit producer. Can't tell you his name, but I can tell you his credits are very impressive. And I reached out to him about the possibility of finding some other screeners, and he said, I wouldn't mind trying that. Turns out he was a Taxi member about 15 years ago. So he knows the drill. Obviously he and I have chatted about Taxi pretty extensively while sitting in a golf cart together. But I haven't seen him now for a year, a little bit more than a year, so it was good to talk to him and good to catch up today. Anyway, I'll be surprised if he's got a lot of time that he can give us, but he feels like he can take a shot at it, so you guys are going to get the benefit of being heard by a top line, a top of the line kind of guy who I think also has a ton of connections in the industry, so maybe some good listings will come out of those relationships. We'll see. Now, we haven't had any COVID-19 listings in a while. I think those may have already run their course. I mean, we had a lot of them. And I think that shows have... I know that shows went back into production a couple weeks ago, like a month ago. The quarantine was kind of lifted, more or less lifted. Things were opening back up again, and now our governor has closed some things back down. But I did notice in the governor's official, or the state of California's official thing, like a bullet point list of things that close or closing again, like bars and restaurants. They can still do drive through and curbside and all that kind of stuff. But it didn't make any mention of productions, and I think that film and TV production is such a big part of Southern California's economy that maybe they're trying really hard to let that stay open. Um, anyway, everybody's sick of it. Yes, Jesse, we are all sick of it. My buddy is like an urban pop guy, been involved in a lot of K-pop lately. So generally, just anything that's kind of like ranging from hip hop to pop songs with hip hop beats, and then K-pop, which I think is largely just like American pop, but a lot of times they'll take an American pop song and then have a Korean person write Korean lyrics, not necessarily even a translation of the American lyrics or English lyrics. Anyway, that's that. I'm excited. Some new blood. Hello, Pierre. Pierre says, upside of confinement, write and practice more. Usually, yes, screeners do specialize in one genre, maybe a couple of genres or a few genres at most. But yeah, we're not going to take somebody who is, highly expert at country and go, oh, well, we don't have anybody do a pop listing today. Let's throw that person on that listing. We'd rather, run late on it than put a screener on it who isn't extremely familiar with that genre. Mary K-pop equals pink. So yeah, screeners specialize in one genre. There are a few screeners we've got, like some of our better, I shouldn't say better, that sounds bad. It makes it sound like we have people that aren't better. Um, a few of our film and TV screeners are very adept at many genres, but only as they apply to the film and TV side. We have screeners who are great at pop for film and TV and country for film and TV, urban for film and TV. But that's a different thing than screening for urban, pop, or country for record labels. When you're screening for film and TV, it's all about, would this work in a scene? Does it evoke an emotion? Would it elevate an emotion? Whereas, like, let's say you're screening country for a country artist on a major label, that's a whole different thing. That's all about lyric construction and fresh melodies and telling a story in a conversational way. Those things, like, here's a great example. A country song for an artist in the country record side of the industry, they would look for very specific, what they call in Nashville, visual details. Those visual details won't work in country for film and TV because those details and that narrative or storyline is probably almost assuredly going to conflict with the script. So country for film and TV would be about, I'm trying to think. My brain's not fully functional yet. The iced coffee hasn't kicked in. It's just a different thing. One is very specific in the details and storyline, and the other needs to be very general and universal. Hello, Robert Martin. How are you? Trev Fury. Speaking of running late, is the turnaround still roughly 3 weeks for screening? It is. But I was on the phone with Tom, who's our head of A&R, yesterday afternoon, actually, after the show yesterday afternoon, and he told me that they are, in fact, running late on a few things. Now, we prioritize listings. If something needs to be in the hands of an industry person quickly, we will make sure that we nail that deadline. If they don't have a hard, fast deadline on something, then that type of listing might be pushed back a week later so that we can get the stuff that does have a critical deadline in the hands of the end user more quickly. So there you go. Okay, shall we pick up where we left off yesterday? As you may remember, during yesterday's episode, we were talking about your goals and the thing. I sounded like a hillbilly when I said your goals. What your goals are. I wanted to just, you guys are my little extended family here, and who better? I think you guys are all hardcore taxi members. And I wanted to find out what your goals are because I think you're probably representative of the greater member body. But I also wanted to find out, like what's holding you back? Do you have a goal and there's something that's preventing you from doing what you'd really like to be doing? What are your goals? And you're welcome, Alex Dillon. You like that advice, huh? That's right. I told you to buy those 3 books. Trust me. When you finish, and you won't be able to put those books down, and when you finish reading them, it will be as if you got a master's degree, maybe even like a PhD level degree in creating instrumental cues for television and film. So you're going to love them, and I can't wait till you get them and start reading them and tell us all about how that went for you. So somebody, as I said yesterday, I didn't write down the names because I was having a hard time writing fast enough that I could get these things down at all. But somebody said they would just like to make a living at songwriting. Does anybody remember anybody in the chat room today want to own up to making that proclamation that they want to make a living from songwriting? Whoever said that, please raise your hand with a +1. That was Ian. Okay, great. Yeah, Kira says the Stephen Pressfield recommendation is helping me move towards my goals. Speaking of which, and I will talk to you about your goals specifically, Ian, in a moment here, but I've got a sidetrack. I was reading the Seth Godin marketing book this morning when I got up that was recommended by Darren Moss, I believe. And yes, Darren, you and I are very much in agreement on it is the hardest read of all of Seth Godin's books, I believe. I'm having to reread some of those pages 2 and 3 times going, what does he mean there? The other books were easy to breeze through and you could just write down notes and grab ideas and run with them. This particular book is a bit of a slog. There's some great stuff in there. I can tell he's trying really hard not to repeat the stuff that he has put in previous books, of which there are many. But I also think that what he's trying to do is put lipstick on a pig, maybe. He's trying to dress up things that he's said over and over in previous books and say it in new ways and come up with new analogies, maybe, or euphemisms, maybe might be the right way to say it. Anyway, I find that he's working a little bit too hard in this book to try and disguise that. Anyway. Okay, headline, Red Rocks. I'm just catching up on the thing here. Okay. So now let's get back to Ian's thing. You would like to make a living at songwriting. It's a pretty universal goal that a lot of people have. Can you be more specific? Because that's one of the keys to making goals achievable is being more specific. So do you want to make a living as a songwriter who is getting cuts with major artists? Or do you want to make a living as a songwriter getting your songs in film and TV? I know a lot of people are inclined to say, well, all of the above, but I personally believe that you will get farther faster by being more specific. Write for other artists in folk or country, Ian says. Okay, so country songwriting. I am very familiar with Nashville. I haven't been there in years, but I used to go there like 6 times a year. And felt very good about the fact that I was pretty well known in Nashville, and it seemed like I was more or less accepted pretty warmly into the Nashville songwriting community and the community of A&R people and some producers whose names you would know, because I showed up regularly and did what I was advised on my first trip, which is keep your mouth shut, keep your head low, keep your ears open and don't try and be like, hey, man, I'm from LA and I'm in the music business and I know everything, because that isn't appreciated in Nashville. If you have the attitude of, I don't know everything about country music and I'm here to learn, they really do appreciate that and will be very generous with what they know in their time. So, one of the things that I learned by going there all the time about country songwriting is the level of songwriting in Nashville is unparalleled, I believe, anywhere in the world. Could you say, yeah, sure, Diane Warren lives in Los Angeles and she's as good as the Nashville people? Absolutely. Are there, pop songwriters and rock songwriters in New York and LA and elsewhere that are as good at their craft as the Nashville people? Yes. But you could be Diane Warren in Los Angeles, in the pop world, in the pop rock world, and she gets pretty wide on her genres. She's better at that than most people are, and will definitely tip my hat to her on that account. However, I don't think that she would even compare to the top cream of the crop country songwriters in Nashville. So that's who you're going to be competing against, Ian. And that's really, really hard. Only twice in Taxi's 28-year history have we had any of our writers get signed to a deal or get a song picked up, I should say, in Nashville. Fortunately, both times, both of those songs ended up becoming number one hits. The interesting thing is, in both cases, the first one was the Kenny Rogers hit Buy Me a Rose, R.I.P. Kenny. Sorry to see you go. Buy Me a Rose was written by two, and I say this in the kindest way, two amateurs, Jim Funk and Eric Hickenlooper, and they were pretty new at songwriting, and they recorded the song, as the legend goes, and I believe it's 100% true, that they were working in a bedroom in a farmhouse on, like a little Mackie, probably 12 input Mackie console, and an Alesis ADAT. So this was back in probably the mid 90s, I believe. And they wrote a song called Little Things. And that song got played on a listening panel at the Taxi Road Rally. And one of the publishers said, that song is going to get cut someday, and I'll bet you anything that song will be a hit. It's perfect, it's great, it's wonderful. I would change the title to Buy Me a Rose, which was the hook line of the chorus. And so those two guys got up out of their chairs at the end of the panel, went up to the publisher and said, well, if you like it so much, do you want to publish it? And he said, okay. And he did publish it, and he pitched it for a better part of a year, I believe. This was a publisher from LA that would go to Nashville very regularly, like once a month, and was well known in Nashville and could get in pretty much any door. And finally, Kenny Rogers said, I'd like to cut it. Why haven't you ever played it for me before? And the publisher said, I have, like 8 times before. But it took 7 or 8 or 9 times before Kenny finally, like the light bulb went on. He went, I could have a hit with that. And he did. The other example, a guy named Elliot Park from a small town of like 3,400 people in Texas. The gentleman in the office next to mine at Taxi used to be a guy named Doug Minnick, who was our vice president of the company for like 10 years. Still remains a very, very close friend of mine, somebody who I adore in many, many ways. And he had great ears. And Doug was sitting in his office as I was sitting in mine, and he was listening to some stuff. And I could hear it because we both had our doors open. And I was getting ready to go to Nashville like the next day. And I heard this song. It was called a Rusty Red Wagon. And I walked into Doug's doorway and leaned up against the door jamb. Said, what's that you're listening to? He goes, oh, it's a new Taxi member from, I forget the name of the town in Texas, but his name's Elliot Park. And he was basically, if I remember correctly, Elliot was kind of a poet. Very talented guy creatively on many levels. Very humble guy. There's something Abraham Lincoln-ish about Elliot Park. I really, really have a very deep affection for him, in case you can't tell. And I heard that song "Rusty Red Wagon," and I went, "This guy's great. He's special. He wasn't writing true country in the true country kind of format that they are pretty much sticklers, or have been in the past, sticklers for, these very common song forms for country. But I just thought it was a great song. So I went to Nashville the next day. And I think the first meeting I had was with the vice president of A&R at RCA Records, if I remember correctly. It was definitely a major label meeting. And I played a few things, and then I played Rusty Red Wagon, and he stopped mid-chorus on the first chorus, and he said, "Who is this guy?" And I said, "Why, that's Elliott Park from whatever town in Texas." And he said, "Well, Elliott Park is the real deal. I'd like to meet him." So I went out to my car after the meeting. I called the office. I got Elliott Park's phone number. I called him up and said, "Elliott, it's Michael Lasco from Taxi. I just played Rusty Red Wagon for the vice president of whichever major label. And he says, you should come to Nashville." So Elliott and I met in Nashville, I don't know, a week later, 2 weeks later, whatever it was, pretty shortly thereafter. And we set up 22 meetings with publishers and labels with Elliott over a 2-day period. So 11 meetings a day. He was offered several publishing deals. He ended up signing with a tiny little publisher that was a credible but small publisher. He really liked the owners of the company. And they plugged that song, which was called "I Loved Her First," easily for a year or two, and then eventually it got cut by an unknown group on an unknown indie label, and slowly, ever so slowly but surely, it crept up the charts until he had a #1 song with it. So what did I learn from all that stuff? Which is, it's not, people want to think that if you're an outsider, Ian, that you've got no place in Nashville. It's because their experience tells them that outsiders generally aren't good enough yet, or don't know the drill yet, don't really understand country music yet. Some people think you can just, play an acoustic guitar and sing about a pickup truck and a 6-pack of beer and swimming at the local watering hole. And they get really offended by that. They will laugh at you about that sort of stuff. And so they're looking for authenticity, not just another person who can, imitate a really good country song and put together a really good demo. They're looking for something that's new, fresh, and better. And in both of those cases, those songs accomplish that. But for the most part, the way to succeed in the country market anyway, honestly, even better than Taxi, is go to Nashville. Give up whatever you're doing, wherever you live, go to Nashville and plan on spending 5 years of going to every writing seminar you can, every local, guitar pool, they call them. Basically, it's people doing songs in rounds. Go to the Bluebird, anything you can go to any ASCAP events or BMI events, anything and everything you can go to, and keep your head low, keep your mouth shut, keep your ears open, and be humble. And eventually you'll meet people, and eventually people will say, do you want to come over and try a co-write next Tuesday at 4:00? Meanwhile, you should read everything you can get your hands on about how a writing session goes in Nashville. Don't walk into one and say, well, what you got? You need to go into that writing session with 3 or 4 or 5 song starts and play those for the person who you're going to write with. It's called writing up. They're up above you. And if they're taking the time to write with somebody who's beneath them, sorry for that phraseology, but that's basically what it is. They've got to like you as a person, feel that you're humble and that you're super willing to learn, but they want to hear your song starts. You need to bring that into the meeting, and hopefully they'll spark to something that you've got and say, yeah, let's work on that one. And you may go through that process 100 times before you actually come up with something that's viable. But you're going to be learning while you're co-writing. And as you co-write more and more frequently with these people and they get to know you and like you and realize that you're the real deal, you're there for the duration, you're not just popping into town thinking you're the bee's knees, um, that word spreads and they will introduce you to other people, and it just becomes kind of a geometric progression of contacts and experiences, and that's how you get a cut in Nashville. As far as folk goes, honestly, I don't know that I've got a great recommendation for you on that one. Indie folk and folk pop, the kind of more modern adaptations of the folk genre, have a market definitely in film and television. To some extent in TV commercials, a little bit. And every now and then, there are bands that are hitting playlists on Spotify in those genres. There aren't a lot of acts that break out on radio in those genres, but radio matters a little less today, and getting on playlists on Spotify and Pandora matters a little bit more these days. So the other thing you'll find is a lot of those, a true folk artist almost always writes their own stuff. They may cover a classic from somebody in the past, but generally their newer stuff is stuff that they've written or co-written, and they're not looking for a lot of outside material. So that's pretty much all I know about the folk market. I wish I had better advice for you on that count, but I hope what I've told you so far, is somewhat helpful. So there you go. Darren Moss says, did Funkin' Hickenlooper have follow-up hits or try to, or Elliott Park? Did their outsiderness hurt them despite that number one hit? They didn't have follow-up hits, and they certainly tried. Elliott was signed for 3 or 4 or 5 years to that publisher. His stuff got pitched all the time, and he really did have a lot of great stuff. Funkin' Hickenlooper kept writing together and separately. As a matter of fact, Eric Hickenlooper sent me something that was pretty darn good about, 6 months ago, 9 months ago. I can't remember exactly when. And I sent it to some people I knew in Nashville and didn't get a response from anybody. So, the inclination is to say, well, my guy over there, he had a number one hit. And the response from the industry would probably be, yeah, well, so did like thousands of other people in Nashville. So it's better than not having a previous number one, but that doesn't get you you had a number one hit. Well, come on in. I'm dying to hear what else you got. If you're there on the ground and well networked over time, I think that matters a lot more than I had a number one hit a year ago or 2 years ago or 5 years ago. Yeah, Ian, you did pick a tough one. It's the toughest one in the entire industry. Honestly, it's easier to have a pop hit than a country hit, and it's not easy to have a pop hit. So, like I said, I wish I had better news for you, but I don't. All right. Let's see. Where are we? Who put down yesterday that they'd like to write a song or cue per week? You're welcome, Ian. Spiritual says, I need a hit. Everybody needs a hit. You are not alone in that. So Mark Reel said, okay, I think it was Mark Reel. He gave me a +1. So he was the one that said, I'd like to write a song or cue per week. I need to know what it is that you see as your obstacles that are preventing you from doing that. Excuse me. I am all about hearing about those obstacles. Hawaiian Punch. Isn't it funny how good that tasted when you were young and not so good anymore? Waiting for Mark's answer to pop up here in the chat as to what the obstacles are. Why? What kind of watch is that? I love this watch. I'm famous for destroying watches. I hit them on door jambs a lot and crack the crystals and stuff. So I wanted to buy something that was relatively inexpensive and indestructible. Whoops. So I got that, which is a Casio G-Shock, and Casio G-Shocks can be as little as like $90 and as expensive as several hundred. This one, I believe, I want to say $93 or $97 on Amazon. I don't even remember the model. They all just say G-Shock on the front. It's really hard to figure out what the model number is, but just go on Amazon and look at G-Shock watches. They're really big. They're very lightweight, and they're absolutely indestructible. I'm still waiting. There we go. Mark Reel, the technical skills. I play many instruments, but recording is an obstacle. I also sing. All right. So if recording is your obstacle, this is an easy problem to solve. Assuming that you have some sort of basic home studio, and frankly, you don't need much more than a computer or a laptop. I guess a laptop is a computer. A $200 USB microphone, $129 interface like a Focusrite, which sounds great. And assuming that you also do some keyboard stuff, a relatively like $150 MIDI keyboard, and then I'm assuming you've already got a DAW, so you don't have to spend any money on that. If you've got those things, there are so many great tutorials on YouTube that, you know what, take a month off from writing. Just do it. Take a month off from writing and just sit down and give yourself like 2 hours a day of watching tutorials on YouTube. And I'm absolutely certain that you will progress faster than you ever would by going to school for it. It's not that hard. Basically, the art of recording is, whoops, something in my eye. You got a microphone over here. You've got your quote-unquote tape machine over here being the hard drive on your computer, and you want to get the signal from the microphone onto that hard drive so it shows up on a track, and now you've got, wow, I've got something in my eye. And then just think of every channel as volume, pan it left, pan it right, equalizer, which is needs more high end, needs more low end, or needs some mid-range added or subtracted. And then a compressor to keep it from pegging into the red, and some reverb or a little delay. I mean, just those are the basics, and that's really all you need. And the more you do it, the better you'll get. Darren Fletcher says, looking to pick up a Scarlett 2i2. Yeah, the Focusrite stuff is really, really good. It has a really good value. So, I mean, that's what you need to do. You could just keep writing every day, but there's this ongoing battle. There's this tension between worrying about your recording and worrying about the creation of the instrumental or the song. So it's kind of hard to keep moving forward with the songs unless you're, like a strummy acoustic guitar singer-songwriter, and you can put your stuff down on, a notebook or a journal or something, or maybe just record stuff into, your phone, for instance. And that works, like for country songwriting, you could do that. For singer-songwriter stuff, you can do that, but eventually you need to get a good demo of it. So your choices that you're left with are pay somebody else to create your demos or do them yourself. And I strongly recommend being able to do it. Being able to do it yourself takes you out of a prison. Right now, you are locked in a dungeon of, well, I've got great ideas for songs, but because I can't get them down effectively in the recording process, they're trapped down in this dungeon. And the key to the dungeon door is your ability to record. And it's not that hard. If you are able to adjust the volume, like in your car, and adjust the bass and treble, and adjust the left or right speakers or the front and rear, if you can do that stuff in your car and go, that sounds good. It sounds like the right amount of bass, the right amount of treble. I personally prefer music coming out of the front speakers of my car because it puts the stereo field in front of me rather than stuff behind me. I don't like that feeling of, where is the bass drum in my car? Is it right in the middle of my head? No, I like it coming at my face. Just a personal preference. But if you can tweak your car stereo to sound right for you, then you too can be a recording engineer. You should. I don't have a copy of the book here, but you should pick up a copy of Fett's book, Fett. That's his whole name. Does anybody remember the name of Fett's book? It's the mixing handbook or something like that. That's a really good book with lots of graphics, very easy to understand. But the stuff you're going to see on YouTube, you know what? And when you go on YouTube, search for beginner recording techniques, recording 101. There's so many great recording tutorials out there. Fett's Mixing Roadmap. Thank you, Darren. It's a great book, and I'm not endorsing it because he's a personal friend of mine. He's a personal friend of mine because his stuff is so good that he earned my respect, and I was one of the first people to read that book before it went to print, and I love it, think it's great. Amanda West says, how many female producers in here? Not enough is the answer. Mixing in the dungeon. Yep. Anyway, I hope that's helpful. It's absolutely doable. Again, go back to putting the Post-it note on your mirror. Put down what that goal is. My goal is to be able to record a complete song in 90 days. Learn the skills that would enable you to do that in 90 days. And you know what? You could pick a daily goal. Your first goal should probably be using some sort of drum program like Easy Drummer, or the drums that come standard in not Pro Tools, can't think of it, the Apple version of Pro Tools, which everybody loves. And John Pearson always says the drums sound great in there and his tracks sound great, so I believe him. Yeah, but Jesse JPEG says bad time to be a gearhead because coming out with new plugins faster we can adapt and use correctly, you can fall into the well of finding out how they work and losing time working. You don't need a million plugins. You need 4 or 5 plugins that you know how to use really well. There are so few pieces of outboard gear or software plugins that are going to make the difference between getting something signed or not signed, or having a hit or not having a hit. There are probably 100 different compressors out there that all sound good. After a point, you start to learn, well, okay, an LA3 sounds like this, and it's better on an acoustic guitar, vocals, and electric guitar. A DBX 160 is better on a kick drum. But frankly, you don't need to have compressors on your drums. You just don't. I made many, many, many big time records that I didn't even use them on the drums. Didn't need them. Didn't use them going to tape. Didn't use them going to the mix. The best thing to learn how to use a compressor on would be the vocals. That's where you're going to need to use it. EQ on the drums, yeah, absolutely. But the drum sounds that come off of things like Easy Drummer and Logic sound so good, you probably won't even need to EQ them or compress them anyway. So there you go. Hope that helps. Okay. Diversifying my styles. That was a goal that somebody put down yesterday. Is that person in the chat room today? Diversifying my styles. That was Edmund Red. Okay. So, Edmund, that's a good goal to have. What style is what two genres are your best right now, and what are the genres you want to move into, and what do you see as the obstacles that are preventing you from diversifying into those other genres? Edmund says, I mainly write orchestral and more specifically trailer style orchestrals. Now the production is hitting a low. I can't find any new opportunities. Um, okay, so what could you do with that? Well, I mean, libraries still want. I just finished touching up an orchestral hybrid listing that's going out, I believe, over the weekend or possibly on Monday. Um, just because productions shut down, or slowed down or shut down during the COVID era, doesn't mean that libraries still don't need that stuff. And frankly, while there aren't a lot of theatrical trailers being made, there are still trailers and promos being made that use a lot of orchestral stuff. But okay, so um, what is preventing you? No, I'm not even going to ask that question because you've already got skills. If you're doing orchestral already, um, that's probably the most difficult thing to produce out of a home studio. So it means you're a pretty high end producer or engineer or a combination thereof. So, could you go into drones? Yeah, that's there's a lot of competition, I guess, for lack of a better word, in the drone world. Um, but man, if you can do orchestrals, what can't you do? I'm sure it would be a big transition for you to, let's say, go into, acoustic guitar tracks. But there's so much stuff. I'm getting distracted by the chat. I'm going to minimize that window for a moment so I can concentrate. Okay. So you're good with strings, right? So why not do stuff that would be like, here's something, uh, piano driven, like piano cello stuff, emotional piano cello pieces, introspective, hopeful piano cello pieces. That stuff is always useful, and libraries can always use more of that. And frankly, something I've noted about libraries is a lot of the string based stuff they have in their libraries tends to sound dated. Styles do change, and sounds change, and the quality of the samples change over time. So I have found that by me personally having a discussion with a library owner saying, hey, I hope you don't mind me saying this, but I was on your website over the weekend and checked out some of your orchestral stuff, and it sounds a little dated. And they'll go, really? You think so? And then they'll email me back a couple hours later saying, wow, thanks for pointing that out. I hadn't listened to that stuff in a while. You're right, it's dated. So they do need fresh, string driven stuff. So if you're doing orchestral stuff, you've already got the recording chops and the production chops. Maybe rather than doing big trailer pieces, maybe you should be building albums of more intimate string based stuff, more emotional stuff. Um, Maybe even get into some ethnic stuff or world music stuff. I think I've mentioned on the show a couple of times now that my wife and I have been watching the series Outlander. That takes place largely in Scotland and to some extent in London in the mid 40s. Um, Bear McCreary is the composer that scored the series, and he's done an amazing job. And of course, I'm watching this thing, and in between actually watching what the show is about and following the story. Incredible acting, by the way, just phenomenal acting in that show. Um, I've noticed that there are times where they have pieces that aren't big, lush orchestral score, and they do have little intimate things. I noticed there were some things for part of season two, or maybe much of season two, the lead characters were actually in mid 18th century Paris. And so there would occasionally be a harpsichord piece. Everybody would go to what's the name of Louis XIV's castle? I've been there. I can't remember the name of it. Anyway, you know what I'm talking about. Big, guys with powdered wigs in a big room with those white knee-high stockings on. And there's harpsichord music playing in the background. What about making some cues like that? What about doing some Irish jigs? Take your skills that you've already got and go narrower. Don't go big, go narrow. So there you go. I hope that helps. Versailles, thank you. Yeah, Bear McCreary does love bagpipes. Funny enough, there aren't a whole lot of bagpipes in there. Um, yep, 90-second cues. Baroque French style music. There you go. Um, yeah, I went to Versailles in 1986 or 1987. They've got those big man-made lakes, the reflecting pools in front of the castle. And my first wife and I were in a rowboat that you rent and you go out on the lake. And some kids that were like, I don't know, 17, 18 years old were being a bunch of goofy jackasses and splashing us with their oars. So then I took one of my oars out of the oar lock and declared war on those guys and got into quite a bit of trouble, actually. They don't like you having splashing wars at Versailles. Um, yeah, Versailles is incredible. It's hard to believe that they could build something like that, a couple hundred years ago, but they did. And it's intense. The history behind it and the stories about, all the secret passages and stuff. Can you imagine even living a life like that? Anyway, okay, somebody said that yesterday's goal was try to make the best music I can. Who was that? Alex Dillon is asking, what is chill wave? I'm not expert enough to define it for you. Frankly, I would Google it and then go to YouTube and search it and listen to it. Um, I think you'll get a better answer from them than you will from me. Cass says Google it. Yep, there you go. Okay, so Mark Reel again says, try to make the best music I can. That's a very broad, amorphous goal. Of course, everybody on here would like to make the best music they can. Um, I don't know. I think you need to narrow that goal down. I know that's, my theme for the last 2 days has been getting narrow, but the more specific you can get, the more achievable the goal is. So, okay, make the best music you can. What kind of music? That's probably the most important question is, do you want to make the best instrumental music? What kind of instrumental music? Do you want to be the best at doing world instrumental? Do you want to be the best at doing chill wave instrumental? Do you want to be the best at doing hip hop instrumental? You need to pick a genre that is the easiest for you to do and the thing that you are best at now and master that. because once you master that to the point where almost every time you submit, you're getting a forward, and on a decent, healthy percentage of your forwards, you're getting offers from libraries, then you've mastered that genre. But you can't be a one-trick pony forever. So then look at, okay, with these skills and that genre that I'm good at, what else can I do? Cream Crush, is Taxi a good place for electronic beat members to get placements? Yes, if you understand how to make them for film and TV, which is different than making them for records. And I don't want to hijack the thought that I'm on right now to go into that, but yes, it is. I know I need to narrow it to great melodies and rhythm, but specifically what kinds of melodies and rhythm? What is the genre that you're strongest at right now, Mark? Yeah, there you go. Miguel says, go to taxi.com right now while you're watching the show. Go to taxi.com, and in the lower left quadrant of the homepage, there's a red button that says Get Opportunities or something like that. Click that button, get your email in there. You'll get on our list, and you will start getting a daily email with free, fresh opportunities every day. And once you do that, you'll start seeing what the industry is looking for. You can also go to taxi.com and go to the top nav bar and click on, let me tell you, I'm going to go there right now myself. Go to Submit Music. It's the fourth thing from the left in the top nav bar. And when you click on Submit Music, you're going to see all the different genres of music and all the current opportunities that are open in those genres. Mark, really, you're not really sure what your best thing is? Um, okay, here's a suggestion for you, Mark. I hope you're already a member of our forum at forums.taxi.com, forums with an s.taxi.com. Go to the forum, sign up as a member. It's not the same credentials that you use to log into your taxi account. Create a new account on the forum, and then once you're on the forum, go to the section called peer-to-peer. It's about 2/3 of the way down the list of various topics, and once you get there, get familiar with who hangs out in peer-to-peer. You will find them to be knowledgeable, generous, and helpful, not critical. And if they are critical, it's critical in the nicest possible way. So that's a great place. If you can't be objective enough about your own stuff to know what you're doing well or you're not doing well, go to peer-to-peer and throw up a link and say, this isn't in response to a taxi listing. I just want to know, is this country song I wrote even in the ballpark of good for country? Is this orchestral cue that I put up here, is it in the ballpark of good? What could I do to make it better? So put 3 or 4 things that you think might be your forte. Put those up there and let people know why you're putting them up there. Don't just put them up there and say, hey, what do you guys think of this? Put them up there with a specific question, which is, I'm trying to identify what I'm good at or what I'm best at. Where is this on a scale of 1 to 10? Is this a 3? Is it a 7? Is it a 9.2? And you'll get really objective feedback from these folks, and they will help you identify what you're good at. And then once you've figured out what you're best at, then concentrate on that thing until you are a master of that one thing. All right, Mark says he will do it. Yay, another life saved. All right, we've got 6 minutes left. Wow, this flies. I think that this was Keith LeBrant yesterday saying, I want to do a guitar instrumental album. Boy, if there's anybody who's capable of doing that, certainly you are. I want you guys, after the show today, to go Google Gato Blanco, Gato space Blanco, Gato Blanco. This is a new artist that I mentioned is doing like Portuguese influenced Brazilian music, and he's got a breakout hit on his hands on radio right now, on smooth jazz radio and smooth jazz playlists. Um, yeah, funny thing is, it's Gato Blanco obviously is white cat. Even those of us who don't speak Spanish very well or at all know that that means white cat. Um, the funny thing is the logo is a black cat, so I'm a little confused. Um, but check out Gato, not El Gato Blanco, just Gato Blanco. Um, Cute little cat. All right, I'm gonna go search this right now and see if I can give you guys an actual. Yeah, it's the name of a restaurant. It's the name of lots of stuff. Google Gato. Whoops. Blanco music. Let's try that. Gato Blanco. Gato Blanco music. Um, all right. If you go search Gato Blanco Montumbo, Montumbo, Gato Blanco Matumbo. And that's going to take you to the official video on YouTube. And then below that, you'll see other links that will get you there, okay? Um, and listen to that. Hopefully, Keith is in the chat today. Are you there, Keith? Yep, Gato Blanco Matumbo. Um, I can't even pronounce that. Nos Vamos? No, it's definitely not Gato Negro. Um, so, anyway, listen to that. That album, which I was fortunate enough to hear and actually have a little bit of input on before it was finalized and got released, I listened to it and it just put this huge smile on my face. It just, the whole record just makes you feel good. And apparently, program directors picked up on that vibe. So I think it's a great example of here's somebody who is pretty much a multi-platinum, multi-Grammy winning engineer producer, and he just wanted to do something fun and totally out of character for himself, and created this guy Gato Blanco and did this record. And yeah, it's instrumental. That's exactly right, because it's instrumental and it's guitar driven. And that's exactly why we're talking about it. I think it's the greatest recent contemporary. Well, the music is, yeah, it's kind of a contemporary version of that stuff. Um, ML, can you give taxi services an example of that bigger than life smile? I don't understand what you mean. Are you talking about posing for Ariana? That was my bad pose for the day. Rick Cabot Podmore says, Michael, not sure if you saw my comment the other day, but Mark and Sandman from Firefall asked me to pass along thanks for asking me to reach out on your behalf. Awesome, cool. Yeah, I should call those guys. Man, I haven't talked to either of those guys since I think Sandy. I used Sandy on a session. Actually, I talked to the artist the other day, Gilbert Montagnier, who I used. Sandy Fica was the drummer on the stuff I produced for Gilbert. Um, and Mark Andes, I haven't spoken to. I think the last time I was with Mark Andes was after one of their concerts in Miami. They had an after-concert party in a giant hotel suite. I remember that. Here's a great story, and then we should probably sign off because 5 o'clock is just about here. So I was very close with the band and went to the show, and my wife and I were backstage, and they said, hey, we're having a party up in the hotel suite. Come on over. It's private. Don't tell anybody. So my wife and I had gone with another couple to the concert, and they were huge Firefall fans. And we said, we're really sorry to do this to you, but we're going to take a cab because we'd ridden to the concert with them. We're going to take a cab. The band invited us to come to a private party. And we actually did say, can we bring our friends? And they said, no, we told all of the groupies and hangers on and everybody, this is private. This is for like family and friends. So we went to this party and we were there for like 5-10 minutes. And there were maybe 20 people at the party. People were doing what rock stars do at parties after concerts. I, of course, didn't inhale anything. And all of a sudden there was a knock at the door, and I was closest to the door, and I opened up the door, and there was the other couple that my wife and I went to the show with. And they said, no, we get it. We get it. Totally cool, man. It's private. They showed up. They followed us. They got in their car and followed us to the hotel. They must have watched where the elevator was going, and there they were. And I opened the door, and they just walked right in. I wasn't going to say, I'm sorry, you can't come in. They walked in. They got about 10 feet inside the door, and my friend had an epileptic fit. Frankly, he was overdosing on cocaine. So, of course, the police got called, 911 got called, police and paramedics show up, and everybody at that party was flushing all of their party materials, if you catch my drift, down the toilet. I never got invited to another Firefall after concert party again after that. Oh, Darren Moss is disappointed by the lack of slurping. Well, here, Darren, I happen to have my iced coffee right here. This is for you, man. Oh, man. Anyway, that was an embarrassing evening, if I do say so myself. That was, I think, maybe the last time that I actually hung out with Mark Andes. I remember we were actually standing probably 5 feet apart from each other. My ex-wife was looking at him. He's so gorgeously handsome. He's like movie star handsome. Google him, Mark Andes. He was the bass player in Spirit, in Firefall, what was the band with Ann and Nancy Wilson? Heart. He was the bass player in Heart for years. He was the bass player in JoJo Gunn. And the guy, he's like Adonis. He's strikingly handsome. And I remember my ex-wife Karen and I were standing just a few feet away from him, and she's like tugging on my sleeve going, oh my God, he's gorgeous. And that's when the knock at the door happened. So there you go. Anyway, that's it for today. I want to let you know that there's about a 99% chance that I will not be doing a Taxi TV. Even Ariana didn't know that until right now. Not going to do a Taxi TV, I don't think, on Monday because we have a termite-infested pergola in the backyard, and it's got to be detached from the house. So I've got workmen coming on Monday to detach it, and try as I might to find out how many hours they think it's going to take to saw it apart and deconstruct it and wrap it in plastic so the termites don't go everywhere. I don't know, but just I'm assuming that I'm looking at the pergola as I'm talking to you guys. It's like 15 feet away from me. So, it's only $600 to deconstruct a pergola. To get the new one put up there that I want is several $1,000. Andre Stepanian says, I'm lying, I'm going fishing. That's not a bad idea, Andre. So with that, you're welcome, Ian. Fishing excuse number 67. Robert. Yeah, termites, man. We're very lucky. We actually had the guy crawl the house, go up in the attic and everything. It looks like the termites we have are just like up near the eaves and a few spots and in the pergola. So hopefully it's still going to cost $5,000, actually $4,800 and change. Oh no, adding the pergola teardown, it's going to be $5,400 and change to get rid of the pergola and do all the termite proofing and ripping out the places in the eaves where there are termites, which thank God is a light infestation, and replace that wood and seal that wood and repaint that wood. And then we rat-proofed the house when we bought it like 18, 19 years ago, but the rats have figured out how to beat the old rat-proofing, so we're going to do another round of rat-proofing, because in California we get these things called California roof rats. Anyway, so yeah, no Taxi TV on Monday. Have a great weekend. Would you guys like to continue this thing about... I've still got some stuff left, I believe, on the goals. So yeah, we've still got like, I don't know, 4 or 5 left. So we'll finish those up on Tuesday, and then we'll figure out what we're going to do for the rest of the week, all right? So have a great weekend, everybody. Thank you, Ariana. Liz, great to see you in the chat. I heard Deb saw you at the office today. Thank you for putting my new hair product on my desk. See you guys next week. Have a great weekend. Stay safe, stay healthy, and thanks for coming to today's episode of Taxi's Quarantini Happy Hour. Woo! Bye-bye, you guys.